Good morning, Scotland. Good morning, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Tuesday, the 22nd of October, 2024. Imagine this, a government that isn't afraid to make bold decisions. A government that prioritises the needs and values of its people over the approval of another country's leadership. In 2007, when the SNP took office in Scotland, it became clear that this was exactly what they were prepared to do. They were not interested in timid, half-hearted measures that pleased Westminster but failed to deliver for Scotland. They were ready to prove that devolution, when used properly, could make a tangible difference to people's lives. Under Unionist control, devolution had been nothing more than a leash, carefully managed, never stretched too far, and always designed to keep Scotland within the confines of what Westminster found acceptable. The SNP, however, showed us what was possible when a government actually uses the powers of devolution to benefit Scotland. The Unionist critics in the media attacked the SNP for focusing on independence, but the party got to work proving that Scotland could be better. Council tax was frozen, prescription charges were scrapped, and tuition fees were abolished entirely. These weren't just small changes, these were transformative policies that reflected Scotland's distinct needs and values, not the priorities of London. This was a stark contrast to the cautious, Westminster-approved policies of the Unionist governments that came before them. And when the SNP won a majority in 2011, they pushed the boundaries of devolution even further. Public services saw significant improvements under their leadership, and while Westminster continued to raise tuition fees south of the border, the SNP ensured that higher education remained free in Scotland. This wasn't just a gesture. This was a demonstration of what could be achieved when a government is willing to use the powers it has to stand up for the people. But it didn't stop there. Even after the 2014 independence referendum, where Scotland narrowly voted to remain in the UK, the SNP continued to govern effectively. Unionist parties in the media may have continued to undermine devolution, claiming that the SNP was obsessed with independence, but the reality was quite different. The SNP got on with the job. They expanded free childcare, they introduced progressive policies like baby boxes for new parents, and they used devolved welfare powers to protect Scots from the harshest impacts of Westminster's austerity measures. While Westminster was cutting budgets and tightening belts, the SNP was finding ways to soften the blow for Scotland's most vulnerable. But of course, Westminster doesn't like it when Scotland starts to succeed in its own terms. They don't like it when Holyrood uses powers to chart a different path from one laid out in London. So Westminster started to claw back power. They passed legislation like the UK Internal Market Act, a clear attempt to undermine Scotland's devolved authority by restricting Holyrood's ability to legislate on vital issues like food standards and environmental protections. This wasn't about helping Scotland. This was about keeping Scotland in line. Yet, even in the face of these blatant power grabs, the SNP continued to make progress. They did not back down. They didn't surrender to Westminster's control. And despite relentless attacks from the Unionist media, accusing them of being obsessed with independence, of neglecting governance in favour of political ambition, the SNP continued to deliver results for Scotland. The truth is, while the media was busy accusing the SNP of focusing too much on independence, the real story was that Westminster was the one undermining devolution. The real obsession, it seems, was coming from London, a fixation on keeping Scotland tied to a system that no longer works for it, a system designed to suppress Scotland's potential. The evidence is clear. Devolution, when used by a government that is willing to fight for its people, can make a difference. But it's also clear that devolution as it stands will never be enough. Because as long as Westminster holds the ultimate power, as long as the Unionist parties in Holyrood continue to prioritise England's approval over Scotland's needs, we will never be able to unlock our full potential. It's time to evolve. Scotland has shown it can govern itself effectively with the limited powers it has. Just imagine what we could achieve if we weren't being held back by Westminster's control. Westminster would never have given us baby boxes, would never have given us free tuition, and never abolished prescription charges. There's a whole other list of things, but these are the ones that stick in people's minds. And the arguments against them from so-called Unionists in Scotland are pathetic and trivial. Imagine what an independent Scotland could look like. A nation free to make its own decisions, to prioritise its own people, to building a future based on its own values. The SNP has proven that it's not independence that threatens Scotland's prosperity. It's Westminster. And that's why devolution will never be enough. It is so very much time for independence. Some people really don't like the SNP for whatever reasons. However, they are the party of government in Holyrood. They are the party that has delivered these things, and love them or hate them, they have made devolution work to its limits. People accuse them of being happy within devolution. I disagree. I think that they are pushing the boundaries of what they can do by governing in such a way that it benefits the people of Scotland. Yeah, I'm a card-carrying member of the SNP. I don't consider myself to be a zealot for them. I'd never voted SNP 1 and 2. I've always given my second vote to another pro-independence party or pro-independence individual. That's just me. That's my personal choice, because I want to expand the representation of the pro-independence, pro-Scottish MSPs in Holyrood. However, I can't fault the SNP for pushing the boundaries of devolution. To be critical of that is a bit silly. Tomorrow we'll continue the story of evolution, not devolution, and look more closely at the glass ceiling, the limits, and various other little things. And then Thursday is going to be my favourite one. That's going to be, why would you want an English-based party in a Scottish Parliament anyway? Until then, you have a great day.
I can't get no sleep.